Young,
Here.
Ingram,
Present.
Rector,
Here.
Summers,
Here.
Tinsley, Taylor,
Here.
Harper.
Here. Okay, we have a quorum present. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Mr.
I'll
Ingram,
second.
Ingram and Taylor. Any discussion on that? Not all, do I have to roll call this? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 All at
Aye.
once. Okay. You'd make a great choir, guys. Motion passed. Next up is approval of minutes from the March meeting.
So moved by Rector.
Second by Wolken.
Rector and Walken, any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Is there anyone out there for public participation at this time? Nobody? Okay, we'll move on to communications. Anybody out there got communications? All right. New business. First item A is discussion for the sheriff's office and jail consolidation plan, and I'll turn this over to Dana at this time. Oh, okay.
Dana, you're on mute.
Sorry. How about now? Okay. So as you all know, we've been discussing jail consolidation plan with the sheriff. We've involved Reef Stack Architecture here from Champaign to come up with several thoughts and ideas on what we could do to consolidate. In April, the chair and the vice chair and Darlene and I and I believe Geraldo met and discussed where we're at, what was happening currently with the pandemic, and knowing that tax revenue was going to be a challenge for the county. This is probably not the time to move forward with further discussion in jail consolidation and sheriff's office at this time. I think, Darlene, are you on now?
I am. I'm on.
Okay. I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, so basically the last several meetings that we've had with the county board members and this committee, there's been no consensus reached about where we should go in terms of looking for potential funds for a consolidation of the jail this year. And at this point, it's getting pretty late in the year to be able to do that. There were several suggestions about hiring someone to help us with a public process. There were suggestions of several different models and things presented to the board. This discussion has been going on for a really long time, not just this year, but in previous boards as well. And so far, we haven't been able to come up with a suggestion of what will work for the county. So at this point in time, both the committee chair, vice chair, the county board chair, myself, Dana, all agreed that it was probably getting a little late to be doing it for this year in terms of planning for a referendum, which would be necessary, I think, to carry forward such a large project. So we just, we basically are saying that it's not going to be an agenda item for a while because we have other issues, and we have other, at this point, we need to look for an alternative, I think, that people can agree on.
Anybody want to jump in there? Nobody has anything to say at this time. Steve's got his hand up. Go ahead, Steve.
I'm disappointed that we were not able to come to a consensus, but even more disappointed that the current situation that we're facing with regard to the virus has had a huge economic effect that's going to be rippling through the county for a while. I think as a committee, it's incumbent on us to have discussion. I don't know how much we're going to get accomplished tonight, but to have discussion in terms of the best path for moving forward. I know our executive has talked about wanting to close downtown jail and the sheriff's office. Honestly, I have not spent a great deal of time trying to come up with a solution that we can afford and that will provide and allow for safety of both people that are incarcerated and for our staff. I'm hoping that this group can have further discussion and come up with some sort of a plan to try and move forward. Moving the sheriff's office, in my opinion, doesn't really help us a great deal. The issue is how we can adequately segregate prisoners. I'd like to have further discussions with our sheriff as to what he and his staff have as far as thoughts and the best way to move forward. We've been told that in order to close the downtown jail, we would be incurring significant expense by housing prisoners out of county. And we've also been told that housing prisoners out of county may not even be feasible logistically because of who we might want to try and ship to other to other locales. Personally, I'm looking for direction from our sheriff and his staff on what their thoughts are, because those are the folks that are closest to the situation and are going to have to deal with whatever the ramifications are of changing, closing, modifying, whatever we end up doing. So I don't know if Dustin wants to have comments. It'd be nice to have lengthy comments and more suggestions, because we've not really talked with Dustin specifically about what would happen if we simply close the jail. He's talked about inability to house adequately out of county, and he's talked about cost. I'd like to hear more discussion under the current economic situation that we're facing.
Dustin, you want to jump in there?
Evening, guys. I don't know if you can see me or not. I tried to turn on my camera. I hate online meetings, so I think I joined the rest of you with it. Never seems to work out like it should. So you will be receiving correspondence from me if you haven't already, as far as whenever I started looking at, or whenever I realized that the jail consolidation and renovation plan was basically dead in the water. I started thinking, well, the problems of the downtown jail and the sheriff's office don't stop just because a referendum isn't going to be put on the ballot. And so I started immediately taking a look at alternatives we have, and I absolutely agree that moving the sheriff's office without closing the downtown jail does nothing to save us money. So I am looking at, by law, the sheriff's office is required to be in Urbana. And I am looking at space in Urbana that the county could lease. There will be an expense on that part. There will also be savings with not being in our current building, and I've been talking with Dana quite a bit about that. In this correspondence, I also talk about the Supreme Court, the Illinois Supreme Court pretrial commission. We've been talking about for months and months and months. Well, they finally came out with their recommendations. Now, that doesn't mean that the state is going to adopt those recommendations, but that has the potential to reduce our jail population as well. So at least now we know what those recommendations are. A month ago, I didn't even have an idea to tell you what I thought the jail jail population would be reduced. So we'll be looking into that a little bit more with Julia Reitz and see where that puts us if it would go into effect. I am also more solidifying with counties such as Piatt County to see exactly what that rate would be as far as inmates per day. Generally, it's per inmate per day, and I've seen anything generally from 80 to 100, and I hate to say it, but we may get a bulk rate. It's bad to say that, but I'm hoping that maybe the sheriff, if he can even take that many inmates, I'm hoping that maybe he would work with us a little bit on cost. We would still be required to pay for medical. We'd still have the transports to and from court proceedings and things like that. So we would kind of offset those costs in other areas we would need to. I guess the fact of the matter is I am progressing, and I hope that the facilities committee progresses as well. I am progressing like we don't have a pandemic. And I know that might hinder us making a final action at this point, but I think it's very important that we don't lose the momentum and all of the conversations we've had, because one thing we may not have agreed on an outcome here, but one thing I heard from every single constituent that I talked to and every single board member is the downtown facility has to close. We just can't agree on what the best way is to go forward from here, and so I don't want to lose that momentum. Have you guys seen that memo I sent out? Maybe had Rita. Okay,
It's
so
going to be
so
it's
Rita,
going to be at the committee of the whole agenda, but it will be under I believe it's under social justice.
okay.
So it's not at this committee, but under the other committee. It is attached to that agenda.
Okay, so that is definitely that will highlight some things, some thoughts that I have. I realize, so what my plan is, so I'm coming to you guys saying at least I have this plan, and then I'll likely speak in front of finance committee to say, this is what I estimate this cost is going to be. This is what I estimate our revenues are going to be from closing the downtown facility, et cetera. And again, we're just going to have to decide if the potential for a lawsuit or whatever at the downtown jail outweighs the money that we're going to have to spend on another facility to house out of county. I'm a little remiss to say that the ball is in the county board's court at this point, and I'm probably not going to take up another referendum fight, at least in the next couple of years. I'm going to let the county board run that. But I am here for advice. I am here to provide you the expertise that I have. And I'm hoping, we have a really good working relationship with all of you. I do. And I'm hoping that we can at least get some kind of temporary plan in place until we can either reduce the jail population, we can decide on a course of action that's more permanent, that will actually meet our needs, some of those things. But that's kind of what I'm thinking of at this point. I am actively working on it.
Okay, thank you, Dustin. I think from my point of view, we probably need to get some solid numbers from you from the surrounding counties if you have good relationships with Piatt, but we may need other counties on board because my whole thing has been that way for several years. Is now we're going to have to deal with the DOJ ADA stuff on the downtown facility, and I think that's just flushing water down the stream if we put any money into that facility. Uh, we know even if you fix the roof and do all this stuff, you still have safety, sightline, meeting regulatory things that you have to have nowadays to run a jail. So I'm hoping that we can get some solid numbers from you on housing out of the county and go ahead with trying to do something that's closed in that facility and maybe getting it sold. So that's my opinion. Go
Now's
ahead,
not a
Dustin.
really good. Sorry, Stan. Now's not a really good time. I have been asking, and I reached out to Sheriff Hunt with Piatt County last week, and he hasn't gotten back with me yet as far as getting together for a meeting. He knows what I want. Now's not a really good time to be chatting with other counties about taking prisoners. Not that we would do it now, but because nobody wants to take anyone, including the satellite jail. We've done a lot to make sure that inmates or that arrestees don't come to our facility, et cetera, for the fear of COVID-19. And they're doing all the same things. And so now isn't the best time to be having those conversations, but I'm trying to let them know that this is not a tomorrow thing. This is in the future when we decide, even potentially, I would love, before this, before the budget issues that we're expecting, I would have loved to say December 31st of this year, we're going to have some kind of plan in order to go forward. Will that be, will that, is that something that is, justifiable? I don't know. I got to get those numbers. We got to talk a lot more, with the county board and things about that plan. But that's kind of what I'm working on now, because I don't believe that we're in a good working environment or housing environment for the inmates, and we've got to do something one way or another.
Okay, thanks. Justin.
Dustin, I got a question, Dustin. Did you guys allow any of the inmates to go home due to the COVID-19 virus?
We, Charles, we evaluate the list every day, as far as who is in there, what their risk factors are, if the state's attorney's office felt like they pose a risk to society or not. We are actually, I think my census today was at about 150 or so, but we have been down to about 138. On average, we're usually up to about 180, 185 at this point. And I just talked to the News Gazette earlier today. Our bookings have gone down from about 350 to about 150 in April. So yes, we have let people out. We have, reduced the number of people coming in. And quite honestly, I'm hoping that there are some long-reaching ramifications of changes we've made. And we can kind of learn from some of the things we've done to continue this past the COVID-19. We'll see where that conversation goes, but I think it's a good opportunity for us to look at the way we're doing things and see if it's the best way.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I
Hey,
see somebody's
Justin?
got their hand up. Oh, somebody's got their hand up with a phone number. I have no idea who it is.
That was me. That's me.
Oh,
This
Rector?
is John Rector.
Okay.
Rector. Hey, Justin, thanks for your hard work. I've been on county board almost 5 years, and this is another example where the county board has let people in your department down. This problem didn't just happen. We've known about it for 5 years now, and we haven't fixed it. So I just want to publicly thank you for your hard work on this, because this should have already been taken care of. And while we all agree that the downtown jail needs to be closed, we haven't fixed it. So thank you for your hard work, and let's put a plan going, and let's all hold hands and get a solution. So thank you.
All right, thanks, John. Anybody else need to comment on this right now? Nobody? Okay. If there's nothing else on that, we'll move to the next item. Well, which is a discussion on the closure of the downtown jail. So I guess we're basically on the same topic. Anybody got anything to add on that? Unfortunately, this whole situation we're in right now is making everything a mess, and I'm sure for everybody in this deal. So, oh, go ahead.
To your point, you mentioned earlier, but we will owe the DOJ a letter informing them what our intentions are, since the jail consolidation did not move forward. As we told them, we had them backed off because we thought we were going to be doing a larger project. So now we'll need to come up with a plan. If it's going to be a closure, we'll need to formalize that and then notify DOJ, or they will expect us to fix the ADA problems at the current facility.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Dana. If not, oh, Mike, I see your hand up.
Yeah, just because this is its own item, I was kind of curious so Dustin, I know you kind of elaborated a little bit on the numbers, like the reduction that you've seen. But can you tell us a little bit? I would have to assume that right now, based on probably some practices that you have to keep in place because of the pandemic, does that mean that, are you, we look at a lot of numbers about, what capacities would be and things like that. Is downtown still functionally necessary right now because of the different practices that are in place because of COVID?
Yeah, so I really wish that memo would have gone out yesterday when I sent it to Rita, because I kind of explained that very briefly as well. The problem is the inmates we have left out are ones that we don't believe will pose a risk to society. So they haven't been charged with a violent crime, etc. That doesn't do any. If you hear me talk about the perfect population, the perfect jail population, I could house 295 perfect inmates, right? Well, that's kind of the inmate that I'm talking about. So unfortunately, the state's attorney has not let any of the ones out that we have classification issues with. So no, we would not be able to just today close it down and say, let's move those 40 inmates over to the satellite jail today.
And that you're saying that would have nothing to do with any COVID preventative measures. That's just literally if we weren't in the middle of a pandemic and you had the same population right now, you would not be comfortable moving them over. Is that kind
correct?
Of what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah, I don't believe we would be able to through the administrative code because they list out exactly who has to be separated by classification. And so it's not like it's an arbitrary process that we come up with. The county code actually says this inmate cannot be with this inmate, et cetera. And so that's what we go by.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Anybody else? John, are you wanting to talk again? I still see your hand up.
So I'm on my phone, so I don't know how to put my hand down because that was a *9. So I don't know what to hit. I apologize. My hand is down. I can't take it down. I apologize.
It's gone. All right, we'll move on to item C, discussion of the 2020 and fiscal year 2021 capital asset projects and the effect this budget's going to have on all that. So Dana, go ahead.
All right, as part of your packet, I did include a 10-year capital plan. If you turn to the second page of that, which was page 6, and look at FY 2020, I have a number of projects at MetCAD that are ongoing, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But two projects here at Brookins, we're going to hold off on for this fiscal year at least. That's replacing Pod 300 roof. That's the administrative wing where we're at. And then it's replacing the 13 air handlers on top of Pod 100 that are 25 years old. And then the satellite, we're finishing up the study there, and that'll be done in October. Our original intention was to bid out this project, which would have a magnitude of about 1.6 million on replacing the HVAC equipment. We were combining this year's numbers for satellite jail with the roof replacement number for the following year is how we were going to move forward. Talking with Tammy, Darlene, knowing the implications of revenue not being where we were forecasted with the pandemic, we're going to hold off on those to try and create a buffer for the county in terms of cash. What that'll mean is we'll have to revise our overall plan. So we'll go back, we'll have a little bit better information about where the county will be later in the year, but I would expect by this fall, we'll be able to develop a plan that will encompass FY20 and moving forward, but certainly holding off the projects that were scheduled. So basically, we're going to be bumping back a year or 2 years. Really depends upon Tammy's forecast and what happens with revenue both in this fiscal year and it may go into next fiscal year. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Okay. Any questions for Dana on that subject? Nobody's jumping up there, so I will move on to item D, which is the MetCat HVAC replacement project update.
Okay. Also in your packet, starting on page 10, I included, just so you have a little idea, we meet once a week with our projects teams, our construction staff, which is United Mechanical, and our engineering firm, GHR, for this project. Go over the information that you can see on there. Key items, they've been very busy the last month and a half. They're doing a terrific job. They're getting along and playing nicely with the staff of MedCAD, which are been very appreciative of the protection work and how they go about their business, noise levels, et cetera, within the building. But they made great strides in the basement. Most of the equipment, not the equipment, but the ductwork has been put in place, the high pressure ductwork in the hallway, and now the offshoots to the various offices and meeting rooms downstairs. We are waiting on some equipment that we knew about. The large piece, which is a large air handler. It's a train. It's air handler number 3. It supplies the cool and the heat for the EMA meeting room downstairs. That's that emergency room they use with bad weather, large events here in Champaign, et cetera. So that was originally to be shipped May 22nd. And we were informed that it was probably going to be closer to June 22nd. Got some good news from Train. They're back full production, and we look like we're going to pick it up and be shipped on May 22nd again. Had a couple other items, boiler pumps that were going to be delayed, but they were actually shipped out last Wednesday. Should be here this week. And then condensing units for 2 other air handlers will be shipped out on May 11th. So we really anticipate finishing this project, if we can hold with these shipping dates, by the end of June, which will be good just in time for warm weather to hit. So we've been blessed by this weather not causing folks in that building a problem. There's some photos attached if you like to look at empty buildings, but this used to be full of equipment. Second page, page 14, you can poor picture of the large pressure air duct that goes down the hallway. And then just some other ceiling pictures of equipment that's been removed. Any other questions?
Yeah. Any questions on that project? If not, we'll move on to item E, the courthouse and JDC video security replacement. Dana, it's all yours.
Okay. On page, excuse me, I didn't include that. Briefly, the Johnson Controls was the recipient of the contract, low bid. Project at JDC is valued at about $267,000. The courthouse is about $450,000. We've started the work at the courthouse. They've got about 95% of the wires pulled for all cameras and equipment. Camera were just approved by GHR Engineering last week, so they're on order. Hope to have them here next week to start installing. Project's moving along forward very nicely. It's a great opportunity with the courthouse being shut down. JDC itself has not started because of the pandemic. They're holding us off there. They hope to be able to allow us in June. We'll get there as quickly as we can and get the work done as quickly as we can for them. It's not as large of a system as a courthouse, so we should be able to conclude it in a month and a half to 2 months once we are allowed to come in.
Okay, any questions on that project? Seeing none, we'll move on to courthouse column base modification.
That's on page 18 of your packet. I've included the final wrap-up of the expenses in terms of engineering or architecture. We spent $5,244.19. Project Barbara Diatley's fee was $48,750. Remember, that was for cutting the corners off of 122 of the column bases on the first, second, and third floor of the courthouse. There's some accompanying pictures you can see. I apologize, they're not copyright, but hopefully you can see the outline. First picture was the third floor. Second picture of the hallway is the second floor. And then there's some pictures along the first floor around the main stairwell or grand stairwell. Barbara Diatley did a great job in terms of getting in, keeping the courthouse clean, tidy, and finished the work in about 3 weeks. So project's done. Pedestrians, staff are safer. They do not stick out as far, so they're not the trip hazard they were.
Okay, any questions for Dane on that project? It's complete, it's done. Move on to item G, which is the Brookins Pod 100 roof replacement.
Okay. Last page on our packet, page 24, gives you a wrap up of costs reimbursement for IG architecture, $19,000 and some change. Advanced commercial roofing here in Champaign, total bid price $209,400. We completed the work. Final payouts were made in May. Commercial roofing did a good job. Didn't have many problems or issues. What we did, they addressed swiftly and were very good to work with.
Okay, questions there? Talkative bunch.
Talkative group.
Yeah. Last item is update on the security glass and screens here in Brookins.
This is a new item. As we were getting into the pandemic, we closed down our buildings, knowing at some point in the near future, we hope to open our buildings back up to the public to let them in. Had discussions with a number of department heads at the courthouse and here at Brookins to see what we could do to provide, as a lot of you, I'm sure, seen if you've gone to grocery stores or some of the other merchants in town have installed screen guards or glass, whether it's plexiglass. So we're attempting to do that, working with local contractors here in Champaign, glass companies. We've met with them. They're trying to come up with a plan for us, as well as costs. Some of these will be plexiglass, some of them will be glass, more of a permanent installation for security measures as well as for protecting our workers from the public that come in and cough, sneeze, but also giving them some protection. Circuit clerk, for instance, mostly windows. The state's attorney's office, second floor of the courthouse. Probation, third floor, will be very similar. County clerk's office will be glass, giving the folks a little bit more secure and then protecting them against coughs and sneezes. So don't have all the costs yet. Our concept is to use some of our capital asset funds to be able to install these. The goal is to try and get them here by the end of the month. So it's fast tracking. It is kind of an emergency. We'll meet with the auditor's office tomorrow to talk through that. Talking with Tammy Ogden, these may be eligible for reimbursement from a grant with FEMA. So in order to do that, we'll have to provide all the proper paperwork. These vendors that we use will have to be allowed to be used on the federal list, not on a naughty list anywhere. And then there's some contractual obligations that FEMA requires that we'll have to include with the agreement. So our plan is to do that, but it's hopefully up to 75% of the reimbursement. So we'll hope for that and submit it.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Charles.
So Dana, how does the courtroom look? Any revisions and for trials? How does that look? Any plastic glass up or don't know?
Did you say, how does the courtroom look?
Yes. Has there been any changes?
Yes, there'll
What you
be
tried?
11 courtrooms. I met with the judges, and there's no easy way to protect the jurors. The jurors will have to wear masks, um, but we will protect the judges and the court reporter and the jury from who's ever testifying. In that chair, in that proximity, we'll put up plexiglass surrounding basically that person, so they, again, if they cough, they sneeze, they're in such close proximity to both the judge and the court reporter and the first few chairs of the juror box that we wanted to protect those folks from them. There is just no way with 12 to 14 jurors.
Mm.
There is no way in a small facility such as ours to be able to gain the space. If we tried to give each chair 6 feet of space, for instance, we would enlarge the jury box all the way out the door of the courtroom.
Mhm.
So it takes that kind of space. 2-foot chair, 6 feet in between. Just not physically possible to do that. So judges agreed, and jurors will wear masks throughout this until it goes away.
Right.
It's important for the who's ever speaking in terms of testifying. They can't wear a mask, hence we're trying to protect them from the
Right.
judge and so forth, so they can be heard clearly on the mic system. Um, so
So I did hear the people that want to come visit is limited to the people in the audience, 6 feet away, mask, doing a trial, and there's only so many people can come in there. I just heard that on the news.
yeah, I don't. That's up to court security and the judges. Uh, I don't really have that information,
Yeah.
Charles, or know about
That's good.
what preparations they're taking. But yes, that is an issue with social distancing up to 6 feet. That's kind of hard to be. Certainly hard to put larger numbers in there. I know that several of the floors, state's attorney's office, I believe, probation, as well as public defender, I think are asking, when clients show up to see attorneys and have discussions, that they not bring guests or family members, just to,
Right.
you know, kind of abide by social distancing. So hope that helps.
Yep. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Lost Stan's mic, I think. Anybody getting Stan?
Nope. I don't hear you.
Still nada.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, I got a thumbs up from Steve, thanks. Tech savvy right here, boys and girls. But anyway, any other business? No report. Future meeting is June 2nd, if possible. No items for consent. If nothing else, I'll adjourn this meeting at 7:09. Thanks,
Thanks, Dan.
everyone.
Thanks, Dana.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dana. Thanks, Stan.
Thanks.